Do you put grease in your chainsaw bar tip? Do you know how long it stays in there? I never did. There are a few things I noticed on this extended test that I didn't notice before. One is that oil comes in the top in the bar groove and it runs down beside the sprocket and goes back toward the saw in a large stream. Some of it bypasses and goes around the sprocket and wicks in. Well, once again, maybe there's more to chainsaws than meets the eye. Another aspect of bar grease versus bar oil is keeping the grit out, expelling the grit inside the bearings and the bar tip. Does oil do a better job of that, or does grease do a better job? Does clean grease keep the grit out, or does grease attract the grit and hold it in? These are all variables I haven't tested. I'm probably not going to be able to test them on a bench. I think it's going to go back to kind of a Ford versus Chevy argument. Some people grease and some don't. Some people have had good luck with grease. Some have had good luck with oil. Some like Chevy, some like Dodge. It's just the way it is. One limitation of a test like this is that the chain throws the bar and chain oil off. The oil doesn't get absorbed into the wood as it would as if you were actually cutting. The only way to get around that is for me to actually cut here on the vise as I'm running the saw. That's hard to do with both hands and look at the camera, but it also makes a huge mess in the garage. So that's one small limitation of this test. What I can figure about this is that the grease can stay in there because it's not really moving that fast. Even though the sprocket turns fairly fast, the bearings are at a very short radius, so they don't turn at as high of a speed as the sprocket tips and the chain itself. So maybe this is a decent use for grease, unlike what I thought. I thought it was silly. In general, grease is good for slow-moving parts, and when you think of a chainsaw bar tip, that seems like a very fast-moving part. However, the bearings are at the very center, at a very small radius, so technically they don't turn all that fast when you consider the linear speed of the bearings. It's not really that fast compared to the sprocket tip, because the radius is so much smaller. One thing I wanted to do with the saw this time is run it for a longer period to see if the oil had time to dissolve the grease. I'm going to take apart the bar, see if I can detect oil or grease or both. Let's see how that goes. All right, let's look at this bar and chain as we disassemble it. One thing you can see is that this plate has oil wicked in under it. So that oil easily wicks in between the plastic and the metal of this bar. So that shows that the oil has no trouble wicking into the sprocket and the bearings. Okay, if I turn this light down, shine the UV light on it, you can see here, and you can see in the video, that there's grease that's wicked its way into the bearings. Now whether or not it completely dissolved the grease, that's what I hope to find out. Let's see if there's any grease still left after 30 minutes of run time. We've taken this apart. We're shining our light on the bearings. And there's obviously yellow shining on the bearings. The only thing that contained yellow was the bar oil. The grease was kind of blue at the start, you remember. I'm going to pull this sprocket off and see what happens. I can feel just a little bit of residue of that grease left on there. So it doesn't look like it was totally dissolved by the oil, to me. There's definitely oil there. It's just how much is there versus grease. It's almost impossible to tell with this kind of a test. I don't know if you can see at the center of that hole, but it shows there is a little bit of grease left. So it's a little surprising, but after about 30 minutes, there is a little bit of grease in there. You can see right at the end of this screw, some of the grease didn't get dissolved. And subjectively, just touching it with my finger, rubbing my fingers together, it feels a little bit more like grease right there at the bearings than it does the bar oil. It's kind of a mix of the two, obviously. But the bar oil didn't completely dissolve all the grease. So that surprises me. You see the grease glowing kind of blue on this paper here. So there is some grease left. All right, so that's a little surprising to me. Maybe it isn't so silly to put grease in a bar tip after all. Some bars have a hole. If you can keep it clean and put some bar grease in there, I think maybe your bar grease will last a little while until all the bar oil dissolves it. In this case, it lasted over 30 minutes of continuous throttle blipping and fast running of a chain. That's kind of a simple experiment, but it's a start. All right, so looks like I eat a little humble pie here. Maybe grease isn't so silly after all. It did last over 30 minutes in there. Some of it dissolved, some of it didn't. So it looks like if you can put bar grease in your bar, you should probably do it. And I would say you should keep putting it in there regularly.